This episode of Nos Arietes is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Arietes since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Hi, I'm Will Bruin, and I was just recognized as a Seattle Sounders legend. Now I get to do voice reads for the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
A save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rangers through the middle to crown it for Seattle! And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nicoladero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is campeón!
It's gone! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
We want to win. It's Seattle Sounders, bro.
Porter says cheated.
You know, what was the thought process in terms of who you decided to use and who you didn't?
Ever since Sounder Car wrote a commentary that we didn't take Open Cup seriously.
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Arietes. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today is Aaron Campo. This is the Mailbag episode for February. It is also sort of our preview episode for the season. So we're wrapping some things together. We're going to start the show, something we've never done before, but I've just heard a lot of podcasts doing this and I love it. Over-unders. We're going to just sort of like go through a bunch of numbers, run it down. But Aaron, I'm getting ahead of myself. How are you doing? We haven't done this together for a while now.
Yeah, it's been a nice little break, but I'm excited to get back to it. I'm excited for the season to start. I guess today, as you're listening to this, or yesterday, depending on what your podcast listening schedule is like. But yeah, it's a fun time of year for sure.
Yeah, the Sounders. We're recording this on Tuesday. The Sounders play their first competitive game of the season on Wednesday. There was a little bit of a drama today over where you could watch this game, or I guess it started last night because what happened was the CONCACAF moved the Miami Sporting Kansas City match because the weather was so bad in Kansas City. It was so cold and so inhospitable that they actually moved the game. I guess 2 days? It wasn't today. It's tomorrow. Yeah, I guess they moved it 2 days. And it was supposed to be today and they moved it to tomorrow. And it bumped the Sounders off of FS2. So there was like a few hours or maybe almost 24 hours where it was unclear where the Sounders were going to be, where we were going to be able to watch this. Turns out the Sounders are going to be on Fox Soccer Channel. They're going to be on VIX Plus, which is a Spanish language channel, that part of the Univision family, I believe. And then most conveniently, it will be on the CONCACAF YouTube channel, which there was some question as to whether or not that was actually visible in the United States and Mexico, but it will be. At least that's what I've been assured. I watched the Colorado LAFC game on there today, so I do know that channel is working. But a lot of drama going into this game in Guatemala. Game is at 5:00. Should be fun, interesting.
Yeah. These games always make me nervous. The surfaces are often not great. The competition can be a little chippy. We've had some really damaging injuries happen in these games, so I'm always a little nervous for them, but also exciting. You know, I love the CONCACAF Champions League games. I love, or Champions Cup, whatever the hell they call it these days. I do like playing against these lower rated teams. I think that it's always kind of fun. And it feels like it's been way too long since we saw the Sounders play, and also like it was last week. It's one of those kind of situations.
Yeah, well, and I guess they did play last week. I watched them play last week against Louisville.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do know what you mean. And the offseason is shockingly short.
Yes.
And this and what's funny is that this is an opponent that we are used to not knowing a lot about CONCACAF opponents, but this one I feel like we know even less about, because they don't. This is only their second time in CONCACAF, in the CONCACAF competition. They are a historic team in that they've been around for a long time in Guatemala, but they haven't won a ton of stuff in Guatemala. They are one of the better teams right now in Guatemala. But the quality of the Guatemalan league, like anyone that tells you they know that much about the Guatemalan league, I'm very skeptical of, unless they are like living and breathing Guatemalan football, because even finding reliable records of their games is not easy to do. Like I spent a decent amount of time trying to figure out who was on this team and when they were playing, or when they played, and what the, their results were, are not always. There's sometimes conflicting information out there. You can't always find their highlights. I did watch their 6-0 win in their most recent game against apparently one of the worst teams in Guatemala. So I don't know how much to take from that, but should be interesting. This is definitely a game the Sounders should feel like they can win. But I think any result where they don't come home trailing by a bunch of goals should be seen as fine, if not preferable, as long as they don't get any injuries. I think that's the biggest thing right now. And I will say that the Sounders are well suited as any MLS team to be playing these games. They've played a Central American team all 8 times they have been in CONCACAF. They have played, this is I think the 10th or 11th different or 10th or 11th series they've played against a Central American opponent. They've played teams from Panama, from El Salvador, from Honduras, from where else have they played? I guess those are most of the central. Guatemala. They had previously played Comunicaciones, which is a Guatemalan team. That was, and that's actually a good. That was, I don't know if you remember this, but Comunicaciones played on this enormous field.
I do remember
in Guatemala
it,
City.
It was very funny.
And and I think Ozzy Alonso had a very late goal to either pull out a tie or maybe even get a win. That was like in
89th
2011
minute.
Maybe
he scored in the 89th minute to secure a point, which I think was the point that would it got them through, because otherwise they would have been Comunicaciones would have been they would have been level on points. So.
I do remember feeling like it was a big goal.
It was because things were still in question. I think that Comunicaciones played Herediano. It's really upsetting how well I remember all this, honestly.
Yeah, they played in
where my keys are.
Costa Rica. That's another Central American country they've played in.
Yeah.
And they've done okay against most Central American teams. I don't know that they've actually won in, I think Herediano was the only Central American team that they really struggled with, if I remember correctly. But in any case, this is they did lose to Olympia in 2020 in a shootout.
They did, that's right. Yeah,
that was Olympia, right?
The worst thing that happened in 2020. It was, yeah.
Absolutely the worst thing that happened in 2020. Exactly. Yeah, that was one of the last live sporting events I attended, I suppose.
Yeah.
They played like a couple other two other games maybe, but that was one.
They played the home opener. They played the home opener against the Fire, and then they played the Crew as well.
Right, which was surreal. Not that we don't. Why are we talking about this? I don't want it. This is depressing.
It is.
I don't want to talk about this. All right. Well, so let's start with something a little bit more fun. I came up with a bunch of over-unders. We're not going to go through the whole team, but we have some team ones. We have some individual player ones. And these are all, for the most part, unless otherwise noted, these are for MLS play only. But the first one I said was points, and I'm setting it at 61. Is that, what do you think? Over or under 61?
I'm going to say under, just because I think 61 would be like the third best in team history, I want to say.
It would, yeah. 61 would be a lot. It's a high, I think it's a high mark.
It's a really good season. I would be thrilled to be wrong, because I think if I'm wrong on this, I think there's a pretty good chance they win the Western Conference. or finish first in the Western Conference. It wasn't enough to win to finish first last year, but I think it would be a lot of years. It would have been in 2023, for example. So I'm gonna go under. How about you?
Yeah, I feel like now maybe I set it too high, but I'm also gonna go under because I feel like they're gonna be playing so many games, and they're gonna be playing there are parts of the schedule that are absolutely brutal. I feel like they're gonna be a little under. They were at 57 last year. If they can, to me, somewhere between 57 and 61 is probably right in the range that I expect them to be in.
Yeah,
which would be a good season, just maybe not top of the West.
Yeah, that seems about right.
All right, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. So the next one I said is goals. So last year they had 51 goals. I'm gonna raise the bar to 58. What do you think? Can they hit 58 goals?
I think they can. I think there's a good chance they can, but I'm still going to go under. I think 58 would be second most maybe that they've ever scored in league play. And I do think that there's a chance that this is the best attacking team they've ever had. But I'm still going to say under.
I'm gonna go over. If for no reason, if for no other reason, then I think I need to be more aggressive with my. I was overly aggressive with my my over unders, but I actually do like their off. I think 58 goals. They had, like I said, they had 51 last year. I feel like this is a good offensive team. I actually think goal scoring will not be a huge problem for them. I'm gonna go with over 58 goals. All right, so this one is total competitive games. So this is not just MLS, obviously. Guaranteed to play 42. I'm going to set the over-under at 50.
So, point of clarification here. Are we including, is a playoff series, is that one game?
No, that would be three. Okay. If they get to the first round and they played 3 playoff games, that would be 3.
Okay. So if 42 is the guarantee.
So if they win this series, they're already at 44 guaranteed.
Yeah.
If they get out of the groups, if they get out of the first part of Leagues Cup, they are automatically, that's one more game. Obviously, they get out of the Club World Cup group stage, that would be one more, and then playoffs. So if they get out of the first round of this, they're at 44, and then playoffs would be 47 right off the bat if they get out of the first round. Now 50 might be too high.
Yeah.
Because they can still have, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it would be 47 unless they sweep the first round, but then I realized that would mean they would play more than 47. So
no, that would put them at 46 if they swept.
But then they would play at least.
Then they would play 47. No. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be guaranteed 47 if they swept, because that would be. So yeah, we're talking through this.
This is a good one. I think that this one is really well pegged. I'm gonna go over. I think they're gonna go pretty deep into the playoffs again. I think the nature of the way they approach the playoffs means they're probably going to play a 3-game series. I think they'll probably get out of the group stage in one of the 2 competitions that has a group stage. I'm going to go over. I could very easily be wrong on this one. I feel this is the one I'm least confident about. But
this was the way I thought about it. This is a way of roundabout asking if you think they're going to win a trophy, and if they win a trophy, they will be virtually guaranteed to play more than 50 games if they win any trophy that they. So it's like, I feel like over. If you think they can win a trophy, you got to go over, because they. Like they could end up going over just through CONCACAF. If they win CONCACAF, they would be over.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I don't know that I'm as convinced that they're going to win a trophy as I am they're going to go over 50 games, but
okay, yeah, you can do both.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do it without winning a trophy, but I just felt like
For
it was a
sure,
more
yeah.
creative way than over
No,
under
it's
one
smart.
trophy.
It's smart. Smart.
Okay,
How about you?
all right. So now we're getting into the player ones.
Well, no,
this
it's what
is
you got to give your prediction as
oh,
well
I'm
because we
over. I'm
are.
over.
You're over.
No, I'm over.
So just for the benefit of the listeners, we are recording our predictions here, and we're gonna set a calendar reminder for the end of the year, and go back and revisit these at the end of the season. So I want to make sure everything gets recorded.
Yeah. No, we're gonna hold ourselves accountable, which we never do. We never do this.
No, we really don't.
We never make predictions. All right. So this is Albert Rusnak goal contributions. So he was at 27 in MLS last year, I believe. Is that right?
That sounds right. Yeah. And we are including hockey assists, I'm assuming.
We're including hockey assists, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we're including.
Yeah.
I put it at 25, which feels again that might have been too aggressive, but 25.
I'm gonna say under. I think honestly it would be almost a relief if he was under, if that makes sense, because it means that the wealth is being spread around a little bit. Obviously, he could be over and have a bonkers season, but I do think that a lot of those assist numbers last year were just by virtue of him being the only real creator on the team. So I'm going to go under, but I still expect him to have a good season.
I'm going to admit, I think I over-indexed on this one. I think under. I think he'll be somewhere between 20 and 25. But
yeah,
like you could have. The thing is, you could have a really good season and not have 25. A really good season and not have 25 goal contributions.
Yeah. If he has 25 goal contributions, I think the DP tag is more than justified, obviously. So
unquestionably, yeah. All right, Jordan Morris. This one I feel good about. 14 goals, because this is what he had last year.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a good mark to hit for the over under.
I'm gonna, man. If
wait,
this were
I didn't
Vegas,
give my answer on Rusnak. I'm sorry. I did. I said
you said under.
Okay. Yeah.
If this was Vegas, if I could actually place a bet, I would push here. I think 14 is perfect.
It's good. I thought 14 was good.
I'm gonna say, do I care about being right or do I care about being optimistic? I'm gonna say under, not because I think Jordan is gonna regress necessarily, but just because I think he's not the only goal scorer on the team anymore.
Okay.
Hopefully. Now, if this were all competitions, I think he's going to be way over. And I'm not confident in this prediction at all. I'll just give that caveat. But so I will say under.
Under. I'm going to go over, and here's my thinking is, I think Jesus. I think between Ferreira, De La Vega, and Rusnak, I think he has, maybe by a healthy margin, the most help in terms of players who are going to want to be getting him the ball and are capable of getting him the ball.
Yeah.
I think this could be a big year for him. If he plays as the number 9, he stays healthy, I think he's going to go over. I think this could be big year for him.
I think you're right, but I'm going to stick with under.
No, it's good.
I don't actually think that, really. I don't think, but I'm going to stick with it.
All right. Jesus Ferreira, 20 goal contributions. I think I was a little aggressive on this one. But what do you think?
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know.
You know what? I don't think 10 and 10 is that crazy.
No.
I went under on Jordan despite thinking that was probably wrong. So I'm going to go over on Ferreira despite thinking that's probably wrong.
Yeah,
we'll cancel each other out.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to go, even though I do think this is maybe too aggressive, I am starting to think that he might go over, and it might be more like a 8-12, like an 8-13 type of season.
Yeah,
like 8 goals. Like I think he's going to have a lot of assists.
I think you're right.
I think he is, like, he in preseason he's looked like a play, like he has scored a couple goals and he's looked good, but he seems to really, him and Jordan seem to be cooking a little bit with something there.
Yeah.
This is next one I think is interesting. Pedro de la Vega, I put at 15 goals, which, he's coming off a season where he had two goal contributions.
I'm over. I'm going to go over. I'm
Oh.
actually pretty confident in this one. I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's looked fantastic in preseason. I think a lot of the pressure is going to be off. I think if he doesn't hit this mark, a lot of the other guys are not going to be hitting their marks, and maybe the season isn't going to be as good as we were hoping. I really think, I don't think that he's the make or break himself, but I think he's a bellwether, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw a curveball here. I'm going to go under, but this is my thinking on the under, is that he's going to play so well early in the season that he ends up getting moved.
I like that.
And he doesn't finish the season here. And the Sounders end up selling him for, I don't know,
15 million
or something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I think like that would be great.
There was an interesting anecdote I heard from a Sounders personnel person, and he said that of all the players that they get calls about, you would think, Obed is the one who gets all the hype, but the player that opposing scouts ask him about most often is Pedro. And I think a lot of that is because he was a player who was on a lot of their radars before he joined the Sounders. And so they're just sort of like checking in on him. But I think there's a good chance that the world is sort of waiting for him to click. And man, he just looked so hungry in preseason. He looks like a new guy, a new man.
Yeah, he looked to me the way he looked very early in the year last year before he got hurt. And if you remember, like, it wasn't a whole lot of time before that happened, but he looked ridiculous, in his first couple appearances. So if he's back to that, I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. All right. Obed Vargas, and this is a little different, 25 MLS games. So basically, do we think he's going to get transferred? Is he going to get transferred is the question, really. But
I think yes, but I'm still going over because I think he's going to get sold and loaned back. I think it's going to be a Yedlin situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go under.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that teams recognize how much potential he has, and I think they recognize this kid can be really good. But I also think that they're going to say it's probably better for him to finish the season in a situation where he's comfortable rather than coming in and being expected to contribute right away with a lot of pressure.
He is because still young.
He is. And I think like if he's getting bought by a European team, a European first division team, which is, those are the teams that are going to pay for him. Now, if he gets bought by like a championship team, which seems really unlikely to me, but if something like that were to happen, maybe it's a different calculus, but I just don't know that he's going to step into the starting lineup in, a mid-table first division top flight European team. I just,
Yeah, you actually, I think you've made a very compelling argument. I'm going to stick with under just because I feel very confident that he's going to get transferred, and I'm going to stick with under because that was what I said first, and I don't want to be swayed by what your argument, because it's a very good argument and I actually buy it. I would not be at all surprised if a team like Atletico Madrid bought him, and loaned him back. Like that would make a lot. And Atletico Madrid is the type of team that you're imagining, I'm assuming, saying like, we love this kid, but we don't need him, and we don't need him right now. Like
we want to get him, and we know that you want to get the money, but he's not going to walk into our team, and we'd rather he come in fresh, at the start of a new season.
Right. Yeah. So I'm all right. I like those. All right. Christian Roldan, 2,500 minutes. So basically the question is, do we think he's going to stay healthy all year?
Man. For the sake of my sanity, I'm going to go over. let me look at
here, let me set the mark for you a little bit. So last year he played 2,800 minutes, which is, probably what you have in mind. But in 4 of the previous 5 seasons, he failed to hit 2,500. He went 1,900, 2,300, 2,100, 1,200. That was obviously the big outlier. And a lot of that is because he was getting called into national team, which is not really a concern anymore. So 2,800 might be more reflective, but 28, like to get over 20, the last time he was at 2,537, the last time he hit right around 2,500 minutes was in 2019, and that was 29 games that he played. So to get over 2,500 minutes, you're basically talking about missing, a couple games, but staying healthy essentially all year.
I'm gonna say under, because I think even if we're talking just about MLS, and I think that there's going to be a lot of rotation, especially if the Sounders make a run in the Champions Cup. I think they're going to be just more willing to rotate. Although, I mean, if there's a guy that doesn't feel like he's somebody you can rotate out, it might be Christian, just because there's not as much depth in the defensive midfield. But I am going to go with under, but I'm optimistic he'll be able to stay healthy. I think that him having a position that is his own is actually going to be pretty good for his durability.
Yeah. And I think it's a position. The position itself is one that I think lends itself. Like if you look at around the league, I feel like there are more defensive midfielders who are able to kind of play every game.
You're not sprinting as much. You can conserve your energy a little bit more. It's a little more cerebral. You're typically the one dealing out the challenges, and rather than taking them as much as maybe attacking players. So,
yeah, I will say so. Last year, if you had to guess, how many minutes do you think he played in all comps last year? If you just had to take a guess.
Well, I know he played 2,800 in MLS, so I would say like 3,500 in all comps.
37, almost 3,700 minutes.
So many minutes. Is that including the playoffs?
Yeah. So you had 390 minutes in the playoffs, 242 minutes in the Open Cup, and then 420 in Leagues Cup.
So
many minutes.
Yeah, that's a lot of minutes.
I mean, I think you could probably go. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say it could be predictive either way, right? Like maybe it means he's durable, or maybe it means he's got a lot of miles on the tires.
Yeah, I mean, he made up for lost time, you could say.
Yes, absolutely.
Last year,
absolutely.
like he.
So
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
I haven't made my call yet. I'm gonna say under. Also, I just feel like he's gonna be rotated out more often. I feel like it's.
Yeah.
I guess I was wrong. 2,500 minutes is not whether or not he's going to stay healthy. It's really whether or not he's going to get rotated potentially. And I kind of hope he plays less than 2,500 minutes in MLS play, because I really do hope the Sounders are aggressive about rotating. All right, this is an interesting one. It's Andrew Thomas starts, and I put it at 10, which feels high, but I'm going to let you go off.
And this is just an MLS, obviously. I think all of these, aside from total competitive games, is just MLS. Man, it's tough because I can easily see a world in which he starts 10 games. He started 5 last year. And I think the Sounders weren't really interested in rotating Fry last year, and I think maybe
they were not rotating him out of it. They gave him a lot of games off in Leagues Cup and Open Cup play.
Yeah,
but they did not. I don't think they sat him once for rotation reasons in MLS play. Like they only sat him for Leagues Cup and Open Cup.
And there was definitely, I think, an acknowledgement from the team, and I think even from Stephen Fry himself, that having that huge break for Leagues Cup was really good for him, and why he was able to be sort of at his best down the stretch and in the playoffs. and they're not going to have that this year, right? They're going to have Club World Cup, but the break is not going to be the same. However,
Correct.
I'm still going to go under. I think they may be more willing to rotate him for those midweek MLS games this year, maybe. But I still think 10. I mean, 10 starts is.
If I'd say if I did 7, let's just say it was like, I'm not gonna renege on it, but let's just say I did 7.
Yeah.
Would that have changed your mind?
I would probably go with the over, yeah, because I think you got to expect a goalkeeper to miss a couple of games. I think 7's another I would probably push if there was actually money on this situation.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm gonna go over, and I think I think the Sounders sort of see the writing on the wall a little bit, and I think what they're gonna maybe do is treat Champions League like it's Fry's tournament, and then if they make a run in Champions League, I think there could be some league rotation where Thomas is getting a bunch of starts in league play, and then I think similarly in late in the season when they're in Leagues Cup, they may do the same thing where they flip-flop it and they give Fry Leagues Cup and they give Thomas league play. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. But I do think that because I kind of hope he goes over, because I just don't know if Fry is back. Like, we had the same question 2 years ago, right? Whether or not Fry was going to be back. And they're going to be asking that question again. And if they think Fry isn't, if Thomas is your starter next year, I feel like you need to start giving him more MLS minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think no player wants that, but I think Fry probably has to understand that to some degree, right? As long as he's still getting the biggest games.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think you want him for your biggest games, but your biggest games might not be regular season games right now.
Yeah.
All right. Paul Arriola, 10 goal contributions. So this would actually be lower than what he had last year, but he's also going to be playing more of a defensive role.
True. I'm going to go over. I think he's a good bet to get 6 or 7 assists probably, and he'll probably pick up a goal here or there. So, if we were just doing primary assists, I would definitely go under, but I think 10's reasonable.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over too. I think he's gonna be reasonably productive. All right, this is Paul Rothrock, 12 goal contributions. This would be an increase over last year, but he really only played like half the season last year.
He did, but he was a starter for that half a season.
He was. That's true. So maybe it's 12. Maybe I should say maybe this should be all competitions.
All competitions? Okay.
Yeah. Let's go 12. Let's go 12 all competitions. I think that makes it more interesting.
Yeah. I'll go over. Yeah.
Okay. So last year, just to be clear, he only had 7 goal contributions in MLS play last year, but he had 13 starts. I don't think he's going to get 13 starts in MLS play this year. No. But in all competitions, 12. I would say, I hope he goes over.
Yeah.
I hope he goes over.
I think if they have any kind of Open Cup run, he's probably going to pick up a few there.
Well, he won't. They're not going to be in the Open Cup, but if they have a Leagues Cup, he'll probably get Leagues Cup minutes. He'll probably get and I think I think what's going to be interesting is where he ends up playing, because I think he could play either as a wingback or sort of in one of those dual 10 spots. And I think that will likely influence his goal contributions, right?
For sure. Well, and I think too, he's probably, if the Sounders are trailing late, he's a guy you want off the bench, right? Or if you're chasing a goal. So I think if I had to guess, that's where he's going to pick up at least like half of his goal contributions in the league.
Right.
Situations like that rather than spot starts. You're going over as well, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm going over. Cool. All right. This is, I don't even know. I just threw out a number here. I don't even know what the realistic benchmark for this should be, but I said Georgie Manungu successful dribbles, and I I set it at 70, which I think is a lot. I should have checked to see how what like okay, so I am looking at his stat page right now, and he had, let's see, god damn it. He had 30. Okay, he had 18 successful dribbles last year, but he only played 200 minutes.
Yeah.
So like if he so 70 doesn't actually, if he were to like he was averaging I think 4 successful dribbles per 90 last year.
Right, which is just off the top in the league, higher than Messi.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? Pedro de la Vega was 4th in the league in successful dribbles per 90 last year.
Oh, that is interesting.
I did not know that. I'm going under still. I think what is it, 4 per 90? So if he plays,
he'd have to play a lot. Was basically
he'd have to play a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go under, but
okay.
It would be really funny if he did the over.
So there were like okay, just to give some context, if he had 70 successful dribbles, he would have ranked 5th in MLS last year.
Right.
But there were players who but all the guys who are above him are like stars. It's like Denny Bouanga, Luchi Acosta, Bernadeschi, Santi Rodriguez, and then Ricky Puig had 69. Yeah, it's like a who's who of attacking talent.
Yeah,
it's probably under, but I just I just thought it was fun.
If anybody can do it in like 1,200 minutes, it's
exactly. Yeah, it would be. I guess. Are you going under?
I'm going under. Yeah,
I'll go over.
I'm assuming you are. You'll go over. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? There's nothing actually on the line.
No, exactly. Why not? That'd be a great one to hit.
Yeah.
All right. This is where the last one we're gonna do. Stu Hawkins, 10 MLS appearances. Now he has never played he's an 18-year-old center back. You're gonna probably find out a lot more about it. If you don't know who he is yet, you are surely gonna know who he is by this time next year. But he has not yet made his MLS debut. This is going to be his 3rd MLS season, technically, because he was signed in 2023. He balled out with Tacoma Defiance last year. And so basically this question is, do you think he's going to go on? Essentially, it's like, do you think he's going to go on loan or is he going to stay here?
I mean, 10 appearances in MLS. I could see him playing a decent number of minutes and not hitting that number.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't very many teenage center backs who have 10 MLS appearances in a season.
Yeah,
like it's very small. It's like one hand you could count them on, probably.
Yeah, I'm gonna go under, but I do think he'll get some time with the first team this year.
I definitely think he'll get some time with the first team this year. Here's what I think might happen is I think he might go on loan for part of the first part of the year and then come back. And 10 was too high, I think. But I do think he's going to play a lot. I'm going to go under, but I think he's going to get significant first team time this year is what I'll say. 10 was probably too aggressive on my over under. I didn't think that through enough, but I do really think that part of what the thinking was in terms of trading Josh Atencio was that they see Stu already ahead of him on the depth chart. He's 18 years old. He was one of the best passing center backs in MLS Next Pro last year. And then the other player who I think made it easier was Snyder Burnell. He's a 17-year-old midfielder. I think he'll get signed to a first team contract this year. He's not currently signed to a first team contract, but I think those are the two players that really factored into the decision to trade Atencio. But Anyway, I'll go under on that one. And we just bagged 40 minutes of our mailbag show without addressing a single question from our mailbag. I should add that all these mailbag questions are submitted through Discord, and if you want to get in on that Discord action, support us by becoming a supporter on Sounder at Heart. Those plans start at $75 a year, and really the Discord is, like I say in the ad, that it's where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenter. It's true. I mean, I don't know about the funniest and smartest. That's probably hyperbole. I don't know, but for sure the most engaged. Like I was out today for most of I was visiting friends. I spent like 2 hours catching up on Discord messages.
It's been a busy couple days in there for sure. I think people are getting antsy.
Right, exactly. It's. I mean, if you like to read people talking about the Sounders, there's not a lot of places that you can get more of that action than on our Discord. Sometimes I'll admit there are times where it feels like it might be too much, but it's like real sicko stuff. If you're a Sounders sicko, you will find your people. I can tell you that.
Yep, absolutely.
But all right, well, let's jump into the questions.
Let's do it.
What you want to start?
I'll kick us off. The first one's from Matt P. Whitney. My question pertains to the lore of the Nos Audietas intro. It would be fun to hear you give brief context to each of the clips. For example, is Will Bruin feeling as sarcastic as he sounds doing the read for Sounder at Heart? I think I've identified all the announcer calls on the intro. MLS Cup, Champions League, New Who goal. I know Dempsey's voice, but I can't identify the others.
Yeah, so I don't have it in front of me, and I will if Lickett wants to jump in and cut in some audio of him answering this question. I think that would be a fun diversion. But I will say there's the one that throws people off the most is Brian Schmetzer talking about us, and he mentioned Sounder at Heart saying that they didn't take the Open Cup seriously, and that's that reference. And yeah, Will took direction. You know, we went back and forth on the right way to read that ad, and you know, it took a couple takes, but that was I think he's being genuinely sarcastic. I mean, we wrote it for him. I don't know. He did it. He did it justice.
Yeah, you know Will much better than I do, but I definitely think he's being intentionally sarcastic.
I mean, I thought it worked. I loved it.
It does. It's great.
I hope people like it. All right, this is from Bard. Speaking of very prolific Discord members, now that the senior roster is pretty much locked in place, which supplemental roster young kid do you think is the highest chance of breaking out this year? He doesn't want to. He's not talking about Georgie, who's already had his breakout. He's talking about. He says his choice would be Snyder Burnell, who I just mentioned, but he wants to know more about like these other guys that like they signed Leo Burney this year. They signed Travion Sousa. There's this Bayer kid who is a draft pick. I don't know. You can go wherever direction you want on this, but who's your pick for breakout player?
I mean, I'll go with the easy route and say Hawkins.
Okay.
I think he's the one that seems most likely to be in line to get the most minutes, and I think there's a chance, considering that they're going to be playing with three center backs a lot, that if he looks really good and takes advantage of the minutes he gets, that they're going to work him into a rotation, just like they did with Obed and Atencio before him to some degree, and Baker Whiting. I think that when the younger guys show something, the Sounders make minutes for them. You know, they find minutes for them. So, yeah, it's kind of a cop out, I guess, but I don't think that's going to be my pick. Yeah,
I think there's a boldness to it. So I'm sure what Bard wanted us to mention is Kalani Kosa Rienzi, who is not signed currently to a first team contract. I think he has both him and Brunel have been training with the first. We're training with the first team as recently as Monday, and I think he's got a chance to. I actually wrote a story on Sounder at Heart about I think it's 7 young players to be paying attention to. Kalani was on there. He's 22. He is a former draft pick, but he has the athleticism, I think, to potentially overtake Alex. Maybe not permanently, but I think he could really do a good job of playing the role that Alex is playing with the first team. And I think he probably has the most potential to sort of break out as a if like Georgie's off the table, I think he's got, and I would imagine if Georgie's off the table, then Reed Baker Whiting is probably off the table too. So yeah, I think Kalani is probably a good Kalani Kosarienzi, who I think people will like. He if you are curious, if you don't know who I'm talking about, he's the guy who scored the goal against Phoenix Rising and then did the very impressive full layout after scoring that. All right.
I do think that right wing back is where, when I look at the squad, I say that's the spot that there should be some real competition for. So next one's from Eric. What is the thinking around bringing in a CB to the Defiance on loan? Isn't that spot better used to develop one of our existing players? Are there other factors here beyond player development?
So right now, the only center backs on the Defiance roster are Tino Lopez and I think Kato Yamada, who is the player that you're talking about. And Yamada is an intriguing prospect. My understanding is the Sounders this is not so much a favor. It's not like this is a favor to Kobe to bring him in. I think the Sounders really wanted to get a look at him. He's 6'3". He has played for the U20 team in Japan's U20 team. And he needs minutes. He hasn't broken into Kobe yet. But I think he's a player the Sounders really like. I think so I don't think he is just here to sort of like a goodwill gesture. I think the Sounders could give him, or not the Sounders right now, the Defiance might really give him minutes, but I think the Sounders want to get a serious look at this player. So I think that makes sense. I think this is what the Defiance should be doing. They should be bringing in players like this on loan and getting closer looks at players who they might be able to bring in to the first team at a younger age from outside the organization. Like, you can't just be using it on academy players. You have to be supplementing it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the players that the Sounders have had success bringing in from outside of the academy that have made it to the first team through that pipeline, Nuhu,
great, perfect example.
Georgie. Plenty of guys. So yeah, I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Thank you for listening to the Sounder at Heart Podcast Network, which now includes Nos Arietes, Lobbing Scorchers, and the Cooler Guild. We've been independent since August of 2023, but need your support to make sure it continues. Although this podcast is free, it's only made possible by your continued support. Memberships start as low as $25 a year, which not only helps make podcasts like this one happen, but also gets you access to everything we produce. If you're able to support us at higher levels, starting at $75 a year, you gain access to a host of other perks, most notably entry into our members-only Discord, where the smartest, funniest, and most engaged commenters share their thoughts and ideas. To find out more, just visit sounderatheart.com and click the subscribe button in the top right corner. Thanks for listening.
It's getting to be that time of year when you need to figure out how to watch Sounders games. If you're an Alliance member, you are getting a free subscription to MLS Season Pass, and you're covered. Similarly, if you're a T-Mobile subscriber, you're also covered. But if you're going to have to pay for one, you may as well give us some of that money. By using the link sounderatheart.com/MLS Season Pass, you'll help support independent media while also getting access to every Sounders game, every other MLS game, MLS 360, and all sorts of other content. Just to make things extra easy, we'll put a link in the show notes too. Thanks. Nos Arietes, admittedly, is not exactly known for our spicy takes, but that doesn't mean we want our food to be mild. Spice up your life with Hacks and Ferments. Handcrafted in Georgetown and made with the best local ingredients from across the Pacific Northwest, they specialize in unique small batch fermented hot sauces and vinegars. Hacks and Ferments brings bold flavors and natural fermentation together for something truly special. Whether you're a heat seeker or just looking to elevate your cooking, you'll find something you love at hacksandferments.com. That's HAXANFERMENTS.com. And right now, if you use the code SOUNDERATHEART, that's all one word, at checkout, you will get a free hot sauce with your order. Again, go to hacksandferments.com, use the code SOUNDERATHEART at checkout for a free hot sauce with your order. Hacks and Ferments is a proud sponsor of the Sounder at Heart podcast network. All right. I am not sure I know how to say this name. Deatheramida?
I put it there on purpose, by the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Am I right to think that the Academy has produced mid to backfield players better than it has outright offensive weapons? Do first team signings reflect that? Does roster composition take it into consideration? Grow defensive midfielders and defensive players, sign frontline players?
I think you have largely got it. Yeah, I think that it's really hard to develop exceptionally good attacking players. It's not something the U.S. has historically been good at. I think we're getting better at it, but and I think also a lot of the players that end up playing in defensive midfield are not playing there with the Defiance or in the academy, right? They're attacking players, but if you're investing a ton, if you're investing a ton of money, in your attacking talent at the MLS level, then those players are going to tend to move back. It's sort of like the what's the defensive spectrum in baseball, right? Where everybody's a shortstop in high school, and then it's the same kind of
pitcher in high school.
Yeah, same kind of concept here. And I think also if you are an exceptional attacking player and you are getting national team call-ups as a U17 player, the odds are much better that you're going to get snapped up before you make it to the first team, because those are the players that European clubs are going after before they make it to the pros, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I think it's a combination of all of those things.
It is, and at the same time, it's worth remembering that maybe the Sounders' most successful academy player ever is Jordan Morris. And I think you can argue he wasn't necessarily developed by the Sounders in the academy. Like, he went to college and did all that stuff. But it does happen. It's just that it's a little, like it's going to be more rare. It's going to be more rare. All right. Or you're up, I guess.
This one's from Nevtalin. Which Sounders homegrown, other than Obed and Atencio as well, to timestamp when this question was asked, do you think will be the next player to be sold for $1 million plus in GAM, TAM, or RAM? How long do you think it will be before something like that happens?
Well, yeah, I have to say that selling Josh Atencio for potentially $1.6 million in general allocation money is quite a haul. It's the most money the Sounder. No, I guess they made more on DeAndre, but it's like the second most money they've ever made on a homegrown player. It's a huge sum of money. It's like potentially the sixth most valuable allocation money move in MLS history. So that's a legitimate feather in the cap of the academy, I think, to be able to produce a player who could draw that kind of. And the Sounders really did produce Atencio. I mean, he started playing for the academy at 14 and was here until he was 23. And the Sounders, it sucks to see him go. And I would have liked to have seen him. I mean, he's a player who could have probably played here until he was in his mid 30s, but I think this does give him an opportunity to become closer to his full potential, because I think he was maybe stuck a little bit in the depth chart, and I'm a big believer in his talent, and so I'm glad to see him go. But who the next, or I hope in the best, wish for him the best. Who's next though? I mean, the easy answer is to say Reed Baker Whiting. I guess maybe it's not easy right now. I mean, he's hurt, and there's a chance that maybe he's just never gonna fulfill. Other than him, I mean, Stu Hawkins, I would say, is probably a good shout. I could see him being a big sale at some point.
Yeah,
like he has really high potential for that. You look at
American.
Go ahead.
American center backs are like that, and goalkeeper is like the one position that is not, I think, undervalued on the global market.
Yeah. So I'd say the next most valuable player after Obed might be Hawkins in terms of what he's able to fetch. That's not quite the question you asked, but maybe.
I think there's still a chance for Reed, but I think at this point the more likely scenario is that he goes from being sort of the Obed caliber player of this is a guy we can sell for a lot of money to maybe the Atencio caliber of player of this is a guy who can be a really good MLS player for a long time. Which is not nothing.
No. This is from Two Left Feet. I had a little back and forth with Aaron in December when he expressed that there was a very small universe, paraphrasing, where he would consider bringing JP back. Understanding that it is early days, the commentary I've been hearing suggests that narrow universe might have been negotiated. What are your current thoughts on JP's role in 2025?
I mean, if I were the GM, I probably wouldn't have wanted to bring him back. I think.
But are you? Let's like so. But are you? How do you now that he's back? How do you feel before we get into the actual question? How do you feel about him being back?
It's not a problem, right? I think that it's there's like this hierarchy of moves that I would make versus not make, right? And I think this is one that I would not have made. I don't think it makes a ton of sense, but I don't think it's actively a problem. I think he's a good player who, if his minutes are being managed, can contribute. He is, by all accounts, a great teammate and potentially mentor for some of the younger guys that can do a really effective job at times. It's just I would much rather Josh Atencio have been prioritized, but I also think he probably got brought back because Brian doesn't seem to trust Josh Atencio, right? And so that they were willing to bring back JP and move Atencio to center back and then move him to Colorado suggests that it just wasn't going to happen for him. I think if there was a pathway for Josh getting the kind of minutes I would have liked to see him get in defensive midfield, they probably wouldn't re-sign JP. So I think that it's a spot they needed to fill. I think especially if they're going to target a U22 defensive midfielder. I think it's nice to have a guy that can provide cover in the short term that you feel pretty comfortable is not going to block that player in the long term. So still not a move I would have made. Don't think it's actively a problem with the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reasoning for bringing him back was this: they wanted a reliable veteran to be able to eat up some minutes. I don't think he's going to start a lot. Like I wouldn't be at all. I won't be shocked if he starts the season opener, to be honest with you. I think that you're going to go with their A lineup against Antigua, and then they could maybe bring in some like that's a position where I think they might rotate a little bit early on. So I think he's going to get some important minutes. He looks really fit, though. I wrote about how he looks fit. He's looks sharp. So I think he's if they can limit him to 1,200 to 1,500 minutes, I think that's a nice sweet spot for him to be, because I think he can be really useful in that kind of time. And if they, we'll see.
Yeah. Next one is from Sean Wheeler. What are the top positions of interest for a U22 summer signing? What player performances or movement in the first half of the season will narrow that down?
So it is interesting. The Sounders technically have 3 open U22 spots, which is a lot. I don't think they're going to go out and sign 3 U22s. I think at least one of those is earmarked for someone already on the roster. Maybe 2 of them might be earmarked for someone on the roster. Like Danny Leyva, for instance, they could throw a U22 tag on and save like $70,000-$80,000 against the salary cap, which is not a lot, but it's it's something. But it's also similar to what they were doing with Atencio, frankly. So it wouldn't be that different. But I think they're gonna. My gut tells me they're gonna go with a forward, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go with a defensive midfielder. But they could go. Honestly, they could. I'm going to say forward for the sake of this question, but I don't I really don't know where they're going. I think they want to look around and see what it is, but
the U22 spots, especially the ones you spend the transfer fees on, do not seem like a need, like we're going to find a player we need. It seems like a best player available sort of situation, where you're going to identify the player that you feel like is the best use of that spot and the best use of the transfer fee you're paying and the best potential for a future return. And yeah, like to me, I would love to see them sign a forward. I think there would be some benefit to signing a defensive midfielder that you feel like can fill that role for a long time that you're comfortable bringing along slowly. But I do think it's just going to be whatever young guy they see that makes their ears perk up the most likely.
Yeah, I think it also depends on how much of a budget they end up getting. Like if they have a $5 million budget, which is not, I think, a reasonable, given the way they've spent money over the last 3 years, they should have a $5 million budget as far as I'm concerned. Like they should be able to negotiate that. And if they have that kind of money, I think you want to spend it in the attack. But
yeah, that's totally a fair point. Yeah,
we'll see. All right, this is from Better Than. He says, which players are you most worried, Dave Clark, which players are you most worried about regressing not due to injury?
I'm going to answer this two different ways. I would say the player I expect to regress the most without it being injury related is Albert, just because I think that for reasons we talked about in the over under segment, right? I think it's unlikely he puts up the same kind of counting numbers he does. The player that I am the most, I don't think that he is likely to regress, but the player who, if he regresses, it's a big problem is Jordan, I think. And I'm not expecting it. I think he's going to have a great year. I'm excited about him finally getting the chance to.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, but if he regresses, it's could be a real issue for sure.
I'll say Albert is the player who I think can maybe afford to regress and it not be quite as debilitating. I also think he's the player most likely to regress. I mean, that was he had a career year last year, and we'll see how he's able to maintain that. But yeah, I guess the player I'm probably most worried about is Jordan, just because it would suck. But I also think Ferreira's good cover. Like they've never had that good a cover for.
That's true. I'll throw out Yamar too.
Yeah, I think Yamar is the. Yeah.
Yamar is probably actually the right answer to the question, I guess, in the spirit of which it was asked. But
yeah. Like if he suddenly starts to look old, that is a problem. Yeah.
Yep. This one's from Dondo.
Yep.
How do you expect the team to use the cap and roster space created with the Atencio trade?
Well, unfortunately, I think it's the unsexy answer of I think they're going to end up using it sort of to bolster the roster more than like dramatically improve the roster. I think what it does really is it allows them to go out and spend whatever they need to spend to bring in a U22 and then not worry about anything else. Because all you got to do, frankly, is look at what's going on with the LA Galaxy right now.
Yeah.
They traded Gaston Brugman to Nashville for Sean Davis, basically. And who made a little less money, not a lot less money. And because they, I don't understand this, but they're going to end up buying out Sean Davis. Or maybe they bought him out already.
They did, yeah.
And here's a player who's a perfectly good player. Like, I mean, the Sounders would be very smart, I think, to see if they could pick up Sean Davis on a free. But they must have mismanaged their cap so badly to trade for a player and then have to cut him. They could have traded, presumably, Brugman to other teams and gotten less in return and not had to worry about buying him out. I mean, it's just a weird situation. And I think the Sounders are just honestly deathly afraid of being in that same, like they are much more worried about having to unbuild their roster than they are about maximizing it. And I think that you can criticize them for that. I think it's a fair thing to criticize them for, but I also think it's what keeps them competitive every single year is they don't have to unbuild their roster the way that other teams sometimes have had to do.
That is the thing that always gets lost in the discussion about why can't we build a team like LA, like the Galaxies? And the answer is that it's not sustainable. They were a trash fire for half a decade, and they had one fantastic year.
And you can argue it was worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't think it would feel worth it when you were in year 4 of that trash fire, you know?
Right. It didn't feel worth it in 2023. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And if they hadn't won, if the Sounders, I mean, it would be, can you imagine if the Sounders had won that Western Conference final, the Galaxy would basically be in the same situation. Like I know Will Kuntz has been willing to tell everyone who would listen that the main reason they're having to unbuild their rosters because of all these bonuses that hit. I'm sure that's making things worse, but I don't think for a second that this is a situation born out of bonuses. This is a situation where they went and signed Marco Royce for max TAM when they clearly did not have that in the budget for this year.
Yeah, and didn't need it. He didn't
even
add
really
anything
help
to the
with,
team.
No, he didn't.
No, it's crazy, man. I mean, kudos to them for putting together a really good team last year. Yeah. And maybe they won't be as hurt by all this as it seems like they will be, but I do think that it is the nuance that gets lost a lot of the time when we talk about teams like the Galaxy.
Yeah. All right. This one is from Sounder Monkey. How do you see Nuhu and Alex fitting into the new formation? Good question.
Yeah, I think Nuhu is a little more straightforward. I don't think he is a left wing back in any planet, on any planet, in any system, anywhere. But Alex is interesting because I think there's a chance he might be more well suited to right wing back. I think that when he had a more not purely attacking role, but a role where he was much more central to the attack and he wasn't being asked to defend quite as much, he was much more effective in the attack. And I think last year where he was asked to do a lot of defending and also contribute in the attack, it was a big problem. So I'm excited to see what he can do at right wing back with a little bit less defensive responsibility. But he's going to have to produce, because if he doesn't have that defensive responsibility, he needs to be contributing much more in the attack than he did last year. So it's going to be really interesting. And there are guys that I feel like if they're not knocking on the door, they're guys that at least provide another option. Reed Baker-Whiting being the most obvious example. And that's also a position that if they do have some additional cap space after they make a U22 signing, that they could, potentially improve within the league with a trade or something like that if they do have a little bit of cap space that they got from the Atencio trade. So I think their roles are pretty clear. I feel really good about Nuhu's ability to hold down that left center back spot and be really effective there. I think it's his best position. I think he is an elite MLS left center back, and I think he is a below average MLS left back. And so I'm pretty happy to see him in that spot. Alex is, I'm actually pretty optimistic, but I think his position's a lot less secure.
I would agree with that assessment. I think Nuhu's going to thrive, frankly. Like, I think this is he might be the player who this suits best in terms of clarifying his role and just being like, no, you're a left center back. You're not a left back. You're a left center back. And I think Alex has the potential to be very good in this role, but I think it does put more pressure on him. I think it puts more. They need production out of that spot. They got no production from their fullbacks last year. I mean, almost none. Like literally, they need some production out of their wingbacks, and they can't afford to have Alex have a 1 goal, 2 assist season. He needs put up counting stats. And I think he's gonna get pressure. I think that it's gonna be Kalani is probably gonna be pressuring him. I think Rothrock may end up pressuring him a little bit.
Yeah.
Reed could end up pressuring him. I don't necessarily think Cody Baker is going to push him too hard, but there are other players on this team who could take those minutes. And I think, I think the formation suits him, but it also like it's put up or shut up time.
Yep, absolutely. This one is from JLo. When we play pickup pretty much anywhere south of downtown or even some parks on the east side, the fields are loaded with a lot of young people of color and particularly Latinx and East African participants. But anecdotally, I don't really see these people at Sounders games. Shouldn't an organization with one of its primary concerns being a recently more stagnant fan base and game experience be prioritizing giving these soccer-loving communities inroads to Sounders fandom, or is it something they are doing but unsuccessfully?
I do think they're doing something. I think that if you look at where they are putting the urban pitches, it's almost all in communities of color. They are doing a very good job, I think, a very effective job of getting their branding into these communities and doing what feels like organic outreach and speaking to these communities. But you're right. I don't see these efforts showing up in crowds at Sounders games, but I do think that's part of what makes Champions League so valuable. I think it's part of what makes Leagues Cup potentially valuable is, bringing more of these communities of color to see their teams or their teams that are representing their countries playing in these games. And so I think that those are valuable. I don't have a good answer for how they can be better at it because I don't have a good handle on what they're doing beyond, like the urban pitches and have, like, I know they have people on staff whose job is to do some of this outreach, but I'm sure they could be better. And I think that they have to be, I think one of the things that's happened over the last few years is the Sounders sort of have over indexed on their existing fans, and whoever those fans are, it's like we want to maximize these fans more than we are worried about bringing in new fans. And I think that's a backwards approach. And I hope that this year we start to see that change, because I think that this is sort of a indicator of that, like how they have not, like, I do think the Sounders are more relevant in the market than probably any other MLS team, but you're not seeing that relevance showing up at the stadium all the time. And I think that that's something that they can absolutely do better, is attracting these fans to games, because I think it's important to grow the fan base. It's not about just doing, it's not, there's no, like, the main reason to do it is because it's a smart business decision, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah. And I think, this is something we've been talking about on this show well before attendance started being a concern, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It did seem like the fan base does not necessarily reflect the community at large, and especially the soccer loving community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that, I do think like affordability and accessibility has got to be part of that consideration as well. It's when you're trying to sell the team to people, the fact that it costs so much more than it used to has got to be a barrier to entry for some people,
for sure.
And so I think things like working with ECS to get ticket prices lower in the Brom end is a great start, but that's not going to be the experience everybody wants, and I think that's totally fair. And I think working to do that in other parts of the stadium would be a really good start. And doing outreach in those communities specifically and saying, hey, like, we want you to come try this, and we're going to make it really accessible and affordable to you. And let's just see if it's something that sticks. And I think that kind of outreach would be great, and welcome. I don't know how likely they are to do it, but.
And to kind of follow up on something you just said, I believe this year, and this is a good step, I think, the Sounders started lowering tickets for supporter. Like, ECS is now able to sell tickets for, I think, $19, as low as $19.74 for some games. Yeah. And that's, I'm sure that's the lowest that they've ever been able to sell tickets for. I know the Sounders have previously had like student deals where they could sell them for that low, but they weren't in ECS, and that's probably where they want those fans to be. And so I think it's smart to start letting them into ECS. So and I think they have, I don't know if those are restricted or whatever, but there are ECS tickets that you can get on a single game basis for that price. And I think that's a good move. I think it's a good first step, because I think that's one thing that Sounders games have almost undeniably gotten less accessible for a lot of fans. And that's we can bemoan that all we want, but that's the reality. And anyway, this is from Boomstick 315. When do the folks at FIFA hit the panic button on Club World Cup sales? And I'll know that there was just a story about them reducing prices for some of the knockout games and in some of the markets, although it doesn't appear to be the case in Seattle, especially for the non-UEFA games. Will it prompt and change? And if it doesn't, how badly will empty stadiums damage this already controversial competition?
Yeah, I think that the Club World Cup being this way is going to be it. I'm still a big time Club World Cup skeptic. I'm going to go to the games and have fun. My nephew is super excited to be able to go and see PSG. It's going to be a cool event, but it is not what FIFA seems to want it to be. It's never going to be what FIFA seems to want it to be unless there are major structural changes in world soccer where there's not a clear best top of the heap federation and a pretty good amount of distance, and a second federation and a pretty good amount of distance, and everybody else. It's just that's just the way it is, and it doesn't have the cachet of the UEFA Champions League, and it never will. It's a glorified friendly tournament, I think, to most of the biggest teams in it, and I don't know what they were expecting. Because like people are going to turn out to see PSG, people are going to turn out to see Atletico Madrid and all the big clubs, right? They're not going to turn out to see the clubs that, frankly, like sickos like me are excited to see, right? Like the Japanese clubs or the clubs from the Middle East, or just the kind of clubs you don't get to see that often.
Even like a less popular South American club like Botafogo.
Right. Yeah. People aren't going to turn out to see those teams, really, especially if the prices are being asked to pay. I paid more for nosebleeds to that PSG game than I think I've ever paid for a Sounders game, including the MLS Cup final in 2019, where I had our quite good seats.
Yeah. Those were like $75. It was like half the price.
Yeah. So, I don't know what they were expecting. I think for them, ultimately, it's the media rights they care about, and that's been a disaster as well. So I think this is going to be
the bigger disaster, frankly.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be the last hurrah of this format, and I think if it doesn't go away entirely, it goes back to being what it used to be, which is everybody's continental, federation champion goes to some sports washing hotbed and plays some friendlies, and nobody really pays too much attention. I think that's what we're headed towards.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to admit I was pretty excited about this when it first got announced. Even over the skepticism. I was like, no, I think this will be fun. And then the prices came, and it's not even the prices that are annoying me. It's the tickets that are available. Like you can't get, they haven't, best I can tell, they haven't opened most of the lower bowl for sale yet. And if you're going to ask me to pay exorbitant prices, I at least want to know what my options are. And that's what's so frustrating about the Club World Cup tickets is that, okay, it's $150 to sit at midfield in the third deck. That feels high, but I can't even gauge the value of that against what it would cost to get in the lower bowl because those tickets aren't available. And that's like, I I don't even know how they expect the average fan to make that value decision. Like, okay, those are $400. Okay, that's good to know. Now I can make would I rather spend $400 for really good seats, or would I rather spend $150 for not so good seats? And they're not even giving people that option. I think the Club World Cup has been so poorly handled. If it was me, and again, it's easy to say this from distance, but I would have thought that they would have prioritized packing the stadiums, so to sort of like do a proof of concept thing, and then slowly raise the ticket prices so that in the future people go like, oh no, this is a good event. Look how fun people are having, blah, blah, blah. And instead they're going to be playing in front of half empty stadiums, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
It just feels very poorly managed, and it feels like FIFA has like did not really understand the market for what they were trying to sell.
Yeah. Yep. Agree. This one's from Skycat. If you could add one non-Pulisic United States men's national team player to the Sounders, who would it be?
Weston McKennie. I guess that would be a good one, right?
That would be a good one. I think Tim Weah maybe would be good.
That would be fun.
Ricardo Pepi, I think, is going to be really good eventually.
Yeah, I think Pepe's going to be really good. I like Pepe a lot.
Gianluca Busio would be a nice fit. I think in terms of current needs, maybe.
Even like a Tanner Tessman is another player who.
Yeah.
In that same vein,
it's probably Gio Reyna, right? But I don't know. He can't catch on at Dortmund, so maybe he's not that good. I don't know.
I will say that if you're looking for just a pure hype kind of like, if you sign Gio Reyna, even if he's not good, that would get a lot of positive attention.
That's true.
From a like, it get excited like this. That's the kind of signing that Sounders fans would get really excited about. And then if he doesn't land, then whatever, you've sold a bunch of tickets.
Yeah,
I suppose that's
true.
That's the one who's in that vein, I think, of the question. Maybe
Joe Scally would be a very Sounders. I mean, he's very good. I mean, he's a great player.
Yeah,
he'd be great.
I know, right?
But it would be a very Sounders way of making that signing.
Yeah. All right, this is from Good Looking. How seriously is the league looking at a winter schedule, and have they seen the temperatures in the Midwest?
Have you seen the temperatures?
1 degree, I think, is what the kickoff for the Rapids was. That's not even the Midwest. That's like,
yeah. Have you seen the temperatures in Houston in August? And which of those do you think is going to get worse over the next few years? Right, I guess would be my question. I mean, I think the U.S. is a huge country with a lot of varying climates, and I think that the negatives of playing in the heat, just because we're used to them, kind of get overlooked. And I think if you do a break like they do in Northern Europe and most of those leagues, you're going to have some cold temperatures, but I don't really think it's going to be that much worse. And I think the benefits just far outweigh the negatives. I mean, look, we're on this schedule now, and we're dealing with this kind of temperature stuff, right?
Right.
And this is around the time when the break would be ending if we did go to a winter schedule. So, because I think winter schedule is really kind of a misnomer. It's a fall and early spring, more or less, type of schedule.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I do. Sorry, just the last thing. I do think if they go that way, there's going to have to be some capital investment in facilities with like under soil heating and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, big time. I don't think that we are ready for a winter schedule today, but I think there is a more realistic path to winterizing MLS stadiums than there is summer proofing a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be playing in air conditioned stadiums. It's a lot easier to put in heating on the under soil heating, and it's easier to, build heaters for fans, frankly, and do all kinds of stuff like that than it is to build air conditioned stadiums, which there are currently zero in MLS.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I mean I understand, like there are markets where it feels impossible to play winter games. Like I get it, but there's also markets where it's like we shouldn't be playing summer games either.
Yeah. Yeah. There's not really a great answer. It's tough.
Yeah. Is this me or you? I'll ask it.
It
I'll
is
ask
me.
it.
I was on the wrong tab, so I don't mind asking.
Oh.
It's last question. I was doing research for this
on this
question.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's from Twimberly23. Is this the best combination of kits in Sounders history?
Well, if we're only going home or primary secondary, we're not using we don't know what the third kit's going to be, so which I only think is probably going to raise the bar for this, but I do really like the current combo. I like the primary a lot. I think it's my favorite primary since 2014, I want to say.
Wow.
And like I have not loved the primaries for the most part. I really like this one. I think I really like the secondary too. I think they were able to tell a great story. I think it's going to look really nice on the field. I'm excited to see this in action. I do wonder, it's kind of funny, I hadn't really thought about this. They now have two uniforms with blue shorts. Different shades of blue. But it's kind of an interesting issue. So yeah, I would say it's up there. Like to me, the one that it's always measured against, I think, is 2014 when they had the Space Needle silhouette as the greens. They had Nuclear Orca as the third, and then what was the second that year?
The gradient kit. The Cascade Shale with the blue and green.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and which I loved at the time and has not aged well. I'm looking at it now and I don't like it as much as I used to. I loved it when it came out, but
you don't think it aged well?
It looks very dated to me looking at it now.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I guess I haven't spent a lot of time reassessing my opinion of it, but at the time I loved it. I was with you.
Yeah.
I do think there was the fair criticism of that was we have a Cascade Shale and a black jersey. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And that was a fair criticism.
It was.
But it's still,
definitely.
they were individually, all three of them were good. I think
they were,
and I guess maybe in that context, especially this combo, once you add the third jersey, has the potential to sort of like really reset it could be like more of a like an ideal pairing.
Yeah. I think for me right now, 2019 is my favorite ever. Nightfall is my favorite kit period ever. I loved Nightfall. I think it was perfect. Beautiful. And I really like, so that was the primary that year was the sort of like pastel. That was a very not pastel, but the watercolor type. Type. And I know that was a pretty controversial one. A lot of people hated it. I really liked that one. Probably in like my top 3 primaries ever. I love the one that they had in 2016 with the City of Seattle logo on it. And I also really like the primary currently. Yeah. So I think, if the current primary is your favorite, the last 2 secondaries have been quite good. There was the Bruce Lee kit and the Salish Weave one, which I think is gorgeous. So I think it's really a sort of tiers thing, right? And I would say that the current combo is an S tier combo for sure. I would say that 2019 are definitely S tier for me.
Yeah. It is funny because I feel like it wasn't that long ago when people were really getting frustrated about the state of Sounders jerseys and how they didn't seem to be like pressing Adidas hard enough to get more unique kind of looks, and it seems to be paying off.
That watercolor kit, I think, was a lot of people hated it specifically for that reason, because it was like, this is just a template. It's
Right.
boring. The other one's white.
Yeah.
And then they came back with Nightfall, and then shortly after that with the Hendrix kit, and they've been just killing it with the secondaries for a while now. They haven't had a bad secondary since 2018, and that one was really only bad because it was cursed, right? I thought the design was good. That was the throwback, with the light blue with the collar. I really liked it.
Yeah, that was not the cursed whites, but they weren't very good in those whites either. Their record in those was not much better.
Yeah, but the cursed whites were the ones from the year before, right?
That were just like white shirts,
stripes, and yeah. We've come a long way since the bra straps, that's for sure.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Well, that's a good place to sort of call it. Wanted to say thank you to our sponsors, Full Pull Wines. We also have a new sponsor, Haxton Ferments. They make hot sauce. I have not had them myself, but apparently people like them. They seem to be.
I've had them. They're quite good. I'm a big spicy guy, so I can vouch for them. They're quite good.
Well, I'll have to get my hands on those and be able to give some firsthand accounts. But I also want to give a plug to our Sounder at Heart podcast network partners over at Lobbing Scorchers. They are doing yeoman's work on the live YouTube broadcast, like really killing it. Like I went on there, they did an emergency live show to talk about the Josh Atencio trade. They did a good job with that. They're doing live shows twice a week. We are also trying to get our YouTube operation up and running. I don't suspect that we're gonna do the live thing to that degree. Even like I don't really imagine that, but I love that they are doing it. It's really good to see, and I think people are enjoying it. And if you haven't listened, I would urge you to go listen. And it's a good reason to get on the private RSS feed for the podcast, because although they don't put their live shows in their main feed, they do put them in the private RSS feed. So it's a good reason to go and get on that private RSS feed, which every paying subscriber to Sounder at Heart can get into. So also just wanted to say we are getting ready to start the season. We have a lot of fun stuff planned. We're going to be doing regular shows with Matt Doyle, probably once a month, where we talk about the broader Western Conference. We're going to keep bringing on guests that represent other podcasts for the opponents that we're playing. And of course, we're going to be doing our weekly show with Aaron and I, and we're going to do the mailbag episodes once a month and trying to keep things fresh. But we seem to be growing again, which is very exciting. Very exciting to see those download numbers going up. So I'm glad people seem to be digging the show lately. So good to have you back, Aaron. I'd been missing you.
Good to be back. Yeah, I've been missing you as well. It'll be good to see you this Friday at Fast Fashion.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. That's a good job. We're doing a beer release party, and we're also delivering a lot of the merch that people ordered. If you missed out, we did an order of merch, of custom merch we worked with a local printer on, and we will have some pieces available. If you didn't get in on the pre-order, we won't have every size, but we'll have a few sizes and we'll have a few pieces. So if you get in there early, we're going to be there from 4 to 10 at Fast Fashion in Soto. That they have two locations. One's in Soto and one's in Queen Anne. Go to the Soto one. Don't go to Queen Anne. And we'll be there from 4. I'll be there from 4 to 10. I don't know. Aaron might not be there that long.
No, I will not.
Of course
but
not.
I will be there.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a lot longer way to go.
Yeah, no, for sure, sure. I wasn't trying to light you up.
No, I know.
But we're doing.
I'm also going to see the Spits. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it at Showbox Soto?
No, it's at the Clock Out. It's at the Clock Out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're across the street. The reason I laughed is because they're across the street from Showbox Soto. But we're gonna be doing a beer release. Stoop and Fast Fashion made Craft Casual, which was a I guess this is a hazy. I was thinking in my head that it was a like a pale ale, but it was a hazy IPA apparently.
I feel like first time around it was a pale, but
that's what I thought too. But
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a hazy this time.
I'm not complaining. I love them both.
Yeah, exactly. I could be wrong, but anyway, they brewed it and it's gonna be released on Friday, and we're gonna have some posters to mark the event. If you're interested in getting a poster, they're gonna be, I guess they're gonna be $20. That's what it's gonna cost for us to recoup our costs on a small run of these posters. They're gonna be like hand numbered, so that's cool, I guess. And yeah, hopefully everyone come out on Friday. We'll also probably, Dave's going to be there on Saturday. If you didn't get anything, we're going to try to do a lot of pre-gaming at Fast Fashion. I won't, but Dave wants to do some pre-gaming at Fast Fashion. So if you want to see Dave at Fast Fashion, he'll be there.
I'll probably be there on Saturday too.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Well, I think that's our longest outro ever. So I should probably call it. But with all that said, I'm Jeremiah Oshan signing off for Aaron Campo. This is No Sadietis. And remember, you'll never yell alone.
We love you. Let's win another one!